going down this week. Kansas, Austin Peay, but first up for him will be Colorado and UConn at 1:30 p.m. Eastern on Thursday on TNT with Kansas, Austin Peay. Following that, Indiana, Chattanooga on CBS that night with Kentucky and Stony Brook following them. Grant, I imagine is that going to be the first ever Stony Brook basketball game you've ever seen that's coming up on Thursday?
Yes, it will be. Well, I have watched in anticipation of Thursday's game.
Well, you're a professional. You're studying up. But I'm just, I mean, in terms of your personal, I'm from Staten Island, New York, and I've never seen a Stony Brook basketball game in my entire life.
Yes, no, this will be my first, and it'll actually be their first ever trip to the tournament.
Oh,
so
wow.
I'm sure everybody at Stony Brook, the Seawolves, will be very excited.
Taking on Kentucky, too. What a way to break yourself into your NCAA tournament history. Taking on defending champion Kentucky, although, as we all know, is a much different roster. Let's start, Grant, with your alma mater, with Duke. What does Coach K tell the kids at the outset here before tournament time? What is he telling the current Blue Devils?
Well, it's interesting. I played for him, 4 seasons, and was fortunate to play in the tournament every year and, get to the finals 3 times and so on and so forth. But the beautiful thing about Coach back then, and I would assume it's the same now, is that he coached and prepared each team differently through the tournament. And I think, now obviously understanding that it's really just a 4-game tournament, and looking at it as 3 separate 4-game tournaments. And right now, for Duke, the tournament consists of UNC Wilmington, Yale, Baylor, and Duke, and that's where the focus is. And getting prepared for Wilmington. We know in recent years, I think 3 out of the last 4 years, Duke has lost in the first round and been upset. So there's going to be an attention to detail and, giving a UNCW the respect it deserves. But then also understanding that, look, you're playing 2 games in 3 days if all goes right. Mm-hmm. And after a win, you have to, quickly prepare for your next opponent. And I think throughout the season, Coach K manages to squeeze in a couple of instances where you have 2 games in 3 nights. A game on a Tuesday and maybe a game on a Thursday. So there's a quick turnaround, 48 hours, come down after a win and prepare yourself for that next opponent. So you haven't seen sort of this format or this, amount of games in a short period of time before. You've seen it throughout the regular season. So, in terms of what he's doing, I mean, that was 20-some-odd years ago. I'm assuming there's a lot of similarities in terms of what Coach K does to prepare his team, but I am sure that they will be locked in and ready for UNCW.
So, and there's always, Grant, though, one thing for sure with Duke, and there's always a player that annoys the crap out of everybody except Duke fans. And if that player was on their team, you'd love that guy, too, and know that everyone else was annoyed by it. It looks like Grayson Allen is that guy for this team. What do you think about his game annoys everybody so much, Grant? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think he's got a great game. I mean, he reminds me. I mean, he's a guy who attacks the basket. He scores. His personality. And sort of who he is off the court is not sort of, not what you would think it is. He's a really nice kid. And, the whole Duke thing, I mean, it's like anytime anyone does anything, everyone sort of jumps to that narrative. I played with a guy, Christian Laettner, who was a great player and sort of, thrived as a villain. Played kind of like one of those 80s, WWF wrestlers who has that role as a villain. Like Christian was a great guy, great teammate. But when we went on the road, he loved to be that person that everyone booed. And he really excelled in that kind of role. Grayson Allen's a different kid. He's not the same kind of kid. He doesn't have the same mental makeup as Christian.
Yes.
So he made a couple of foolish plays, and I think part of that is just being competitive. But, I think he's a great talent. I mean, I considering where he was last year and what he's done this year, I think he's like one of four Dukies in like the last 20 years to average 20 points a game, something I never did. And so it kind of, I was hoping that the hating Duke and hating certain players would kind of be put to rest after that documentary last year. But for whatever reason, it continues, that theme continues to resurface.
The I Hate Christian Laettner documentary on ESPN that you're referring to. Because Christian was the George Washington of hated Duke players, essentially. I mean, he Wojciechowski's another one. I mean, we could go on and on, Grant, but,
there's more Duke players I think people like than they hated.
That's true, and you're one of those. Hey, Grant, you're one of them. You're one of those types of Duke players. Who do you think has the best chance to win this tournament? It looks so wide open. Every single year it gets more and more wide open. Who do you think's got a chance to cut down the nets in Houston, Grant?
Oh, man, that's a tough question. Last year when you looked at the Final Four, you had the Blue Bloods. You had the number one seeds. You had Kentucky. You had Duke. You had Michigan State. Two great coaches. You had Wisconsin. Frank Kaminsky, Player of the Year. There weren't a lot of surprises, and I filled out my bracket last year, and I had 3 of those teams getting to the Final Four. So I looked good, as I'm sure a lot of people did. This year is a little bit different. You obviously have. As number one seeds, you have, Kansas and North Carolina, Virginia. They're kind of maybe considered blue bloods. Oregon is a team that's really talented that a lot of people maybe aren't as familiar with, but they will get familiar with. But there's so much parity and there's so much balance. And so, conventional wisdom would say put Carolina, put Kansas in there. But I think the way this season has gone, anything can happen. And also what you really realize is it's not necessarily your record, it's not necessarily your ranking, but it's how you're playing at this particular time. It's how you're playing going into the postseason. And, I was fortunate, like I said, to have won some championships and go far in the tournament. And, there's only one time that we got to the finals, or even one time that I was in school that we got to the finals that, we were a number one seed. Mm-hmm. So the seeding doesn't matter. We did the Big Ten Conference tournament this past weekend, and Michigan State, they were fortunate to beat Purdue. And Tom Izzo was asked, do you want to be a number one seed? And he's like, it doesn't really matter.
Well, I mean, he went as a 7 seed to the final game last year. So before I let you go, with you saying you nailed 3 of your Final Four last year with your bracket, who have you filled out your bracket this year? And if so, who do you have, Grant?
I haven't filled it out yet. Games. Oh. I have until. I guess I have until today. Mm-hmm. No, I haven't done it yet, and this is a hard year. It's almost like I don't want to fill out the brackets because.
Well, you have to though. You have to. I mean, when you fill it out, will you let me know so I can let the fans here know? Since you got 3 of the 4 correct, you nailed it last year essentially. Can we get that? Can we get that?
Yes, I'll definitely let you know.
Can I get you? May I have your commitment on that, Grant Hill?
Yes.
Okay. No, you sound like you're wavering here, like because you don't want.
Yeah. No. I just. This is a year that I really don't know.
So put it out there though, because here's the thing, and again, you're a few years into this media thing, Grant. Let me help you here. If you nail it, you look great. If you don't nail it, you tried and you say, hey, these things happen. It's that simple. Okay? And it doesn't stick.
All right. Well, I still have time to fill it out.
Okay.
The games haven't started yet.
All right, let me know.
I'll let you know, and we'll see how it goes.
How much longer do you think Coach K's at it, Grant? How much longer do you think?
That's a good question. I think we're getting close to the end. I mean, he has a tremendous class coming in next season that, could win it. I mean, it might be his best class ever, freshman class, and a couple of really special players. But Coach K is approaching 70, and he's, this will be his last hurrah with the Olympic team, USA basketball, coaching the men's team. So, maybe 2 or 3 more years.
Okay.
If that.
If Duke approached you, would you be interested in the gig, Grant?
No, I wouldn't.
Okay.
But I would be flattered.
All right. So in the meantime, just get me your Final Four. I'll announce it, and then if it doesn't work out, you can deny it. I'll take the hit. If it works,
you'll take the hit for me?
I'll take the hit. Always. You got it. I'm there for. I'll take the charge.
I'm going to put 2 number 1 seeds in there. I'm just going to go out on a limb.
Okay.
I'm going to say North Carolina and Kansas.
Okay. And then who else you have? Who else you thinking?
You know, I don't know. I have to study the Midwest in class.
Okay. Keep studying it, and we'll fill out the rest of your bracket. Thanks for calling in, Grant. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Rich.
Of course.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern. On Audience.